Yeah, thanks Andreas for the introduction, and yeah, welcome for coming. So we titled our presentation "Are Things Getting Better?" just to have a short question, and during our presentation we're trying also to get back to this question later on. So what we're going to do is we are going to visualize the scan results, which we receive with scanning either with SystemProfiler or with CodeProfiler for ABAP. Now, and so the agenda which we prepared is I'm giving you an introduction, a motivation. What are we going to show you? What was the requirements that we tackled with our reporting solution? And then Joachim is going to give you a in-depth look at how our reporting is looking like, how is it used, what kind of information you can pull out of it. Then we're going to have a more in-depth look at what are the figures and charts with respect to the products you can see. So what are the details from CodeProfiler, what are the details from SystemProfiler that you can see. And then we're talking a little about what is the architecture of what we're showing you. When you're interested, like, oh, cool, I want to have that. What do you need to install? How is it running? So that you know how this is been done. And finally, we would like to close with an outlook, also with the idea to get a little feedback from you after we've shown what we currently have. What would be your next requirements? What would you like to see in terms of displaying our tools results within the dashboard? So we would like to end up in a discussion there. Okay, so let's start with the motivation for the VirtualForge reporting dashboard. So here I pulled up a couple of questions, and yeah, you might ask yourself, so I have SystemProfiler in place, I have CodeProfiler in place, so perhaps both of these tools, and you installed it across a huge landscape. Let's say you have 5 system lines or 10 system lines, so the amount of results might be very big, and in terms of comparison between the systems, how do you display that? Would be one question. So how are the findings distributed among the systems? Is there one system which has a lot of findings, and are there other systems which are already doing pretty good? Or when we talk about certain specific test cases, are there test cases which come up only in one system, perhaps? Or are there test cases which show up in every system, and in other areas you're generally already doing pretty good? Also, what you could see, I want to really see that every system is checked every week. Do I see perhaps a drop in the results because some connectivity is going down and I do not have up-to-date values from that system? And finally, after you implemented our tools, you get a baseline of findings, of things where we say, well, you should start working on it, and you really do it. You want to see how you improve. Are finding numbers really going down? Are there certain measurements, and I'm going to show you one basic measurement which we also already have in our chart. So are things really getting better? Do I have a sort of a burn down when it comes to number of findings or some aspects in there? So these are the questions which we could address with our reporting dashboard. And when we started developing the dashboard, so our customers, they had situations, and it varied from some project-based stuff where we wrote some ABAP extractors in the set namespace, downloaded a .csv file, pulled it into an Excel and doing some pivot magic. So that was the very simple stuff. And it varied to the complex area that we had for CodeProfiler, for example, BI extractors. So you could load the amount of findings into a real dashboard a real BI system from SAP, and on top of that builds complex analytic stuff. So between these two extremes, we saw solutions at our customers. So, and also between these extremes, we placed our reporting dashboard solution. And you see here that we gave ourselves a couple of requirements. So we said, for example, it should be ready to run out of the box. So no additional SAP system or no additional whatever stack to be installed to run this thing upon. We want to ship it together with our products. It should be easy to use, and I hope we can show you that. So after this demo, I would say, well, feel free to come to our booth down there and try to click yourself down through the dashboard. It's pretty easy to use. We didn't want to build a dashboard for CodeProfiler and then a new one for SystemProfiler and then in half a year the next one for TransportProfiler. No, we wanted to use the same reporting framework and put the tools later on as additional data into that dashboard. And these are the three first points. And finally, what it states here, well, it's an independent product if you want to. So it's open for new data, and also from a software point of view, it's an independent component. So these were a more technical requirements. So these are the things which we gave ourselves as goals. Now, so far for the introduction. So now I switch over to Joachim, and he's going to start with using the reporting dashboard.
Yeah, after we talked about the requirements and the intention of the reporting dashboard, let's have a look if the dashboard that we actually build does answer the expectations. So we start with a couple of slides, but don't worry, we will see it live in the system afterwards. But these few slides are intended to explain the structure, the layout, and the navigation and the functions within the dashboard. That's something I'd like to show you on these slides. The first slide displays the so-called landing page, one of the optional landing pages that can be configured. This is the landing page containing the system profiler content. In this case, these are the status views or the status charts. So status data of your system profiler inspections. So actually it's one inspection or it's data assigned to a certain reporting date, which is displayed in the header of the dashboard. And this can be changed, of course, within the dashboard. And it could look like that as well. This is another landing page for a CodeProfiler for ABAP. It contains trend charts, and this can be configured as you want it. So as the dashboard starts up, you can start it using an URL in your browser, or you can start it from the sub GUI using a transaction. In both cases, it appears as you configured it with the first page. This is a landing page. Yeah, the next slide displays all the charts, types of tables that we provide or use within the dashboard. There are pie charts, there are bar charts, of course. There is content in tables. I will show the combination or the usage of it afterwards in the system. And of course, with regards to our first question, there are trend charts. These should answer the question, are things getting better? The next slide explains briefly the structure of the dashboard. It's in all levels independent of the levels you're moving or independent of the data you're displaying, we always have three parts. The header contains the data provider, so code profiler, system profiler, and information on the system and the key date and the user, and it will contain further information in the next versions. We're already planning to extend the header information. The second part of the dashboard is always a navigation pane. I will explain this later. And in the main part, the lower part, the data is displayed in form of charts or tables. You don't need to read all the content of the boxes. It simply displays the navigation schema. So as you can see, for both of the currently connected solutions of VirtualForge, we use the same or a similar navigation schema. So we always start with a landing page, and then there's a drill down possible to the to a single object, which is a package in CodeProfiler, or a system within SystemProfiler or with SystemProfiler content. And there are shortcuts for the navigation. As you can see, you can jump from the landscape figures to the system figures, or you can jump from the trends to the status in on a certain point in time that is displayed in the trend chart. This is something I can show you later. So last slide. And then we jump into the system. This explains the navigation pane. The navigation is divided into three parts again. So the yellow part contains the toggle between status and trends. This is it works similar for CodeProfiler, even if the trend icon is missing for CodeProfiler in this screenshot, but it works for both SystemProfiler and CodeProfiler. And then we have a so-called breadcrumb navigation, which is state-of-the-art for web applications meanwhile. So you can navigate forward and backward using this breadcrumb navigation. And in the third part of the navigation pane, you have the option to choose you see the menu options for the current screen, for the current data. Okay, let's check it in the system and show further options that we have.
Perhaps I can also add I'm a salesperson, I can also add from my experience why this SAP-based, and this is a SAP-based, reporting is so important. You will see later on a lot of information, and if you are bringing vulnerabilities outside of your SAP system, you need to have an authorization concept in some reporting solution as well. And this was quite difficult for my customers, especially in Saudi Arabia. I have two which have bought an external reporting solution. When we made the link between the CodeProfiler and vulnerability database and an external reporting solution, we had to think about who has the rights to access the data in an external reporting solution. So you have to set up authorization twice. Or if you have two reporting systems, you need that 3 times. This is a big advantage. If we have all in SAP, we have to do that only once. So this is perhaps also a point we can add to our first slide, because this is so important. Because you will see that the vulnerabilities are named. Should not get into the wrong hands.
Thank you, Andreas. So let's see some of the features and functions, and even get an impression on the usability of the dashboard live. This is the dashboard for SystemProfiler with SystemProfiler content, the landing page that I already explained, with the status charts. And as you see, each of these tiles can be clicked and works interactive. If you check for the business impact of your findings, you get the second level, which contains the chart, which on one with one view explains the distribution of your business impact, of the business impact of your findings. And of course, there's a table with the data explaining the chart. And both are interactive, so you can click on the segments of the chart as well as on the lines in the table here to get the details. And if you scroll down and click on a line, you get the filter displayed here, and you get a list of the data that is behind the line or the segment in the chart. So you get all the test cases that are summed up to this statistic in the view here. Within the tables, you always have the option to filter the data using search terms. It works with a search as you type functionality, so you can enter sub all and the results are immediately reduced or filtered by this search term. Or you can even by a click on the header sort the results, and you can by another click change the sort from ascending to descending, or you can switch off the sort afterwards. It's all done using mouse clicks. If the resolution of your screen is not sufficient to display all the data, or the table or the list of the details is quite long, this might happen in large landscapes, you also can navigate through the list using the cursor keys. That's supported as well, and of course you can copy everything into an Excel file if you want to. This is just another option to copy the results of inspections into external solutions, but this contains or this implicates the authorization issues that Andreas just mentioned. So let's go back to a better resolution here. What else? I mentioned that there are menu options here, so you could switch to systems per region. This is SystemProfiler specific, a status per region or per business unit, system category. This is something you can maintain in your system landscape, or it's simply pulled from the solution manager. If you maintain the LMDB, so the landscape database in the solution manager already, we simply can pull this information from the solution manager. Otherwise, you need to set up it in a system. And then you can, for example, have an evaluation or evaluation statistic per region. In this case, we have Asia Pacific or European areas. And as you can see, there are further options in the bar charts to switch between stacks and groups, or to switch off certain types of data or certain groups of data. This can simply done by using the clicks here. And of course, also these charts can be switched between table information or graphical information. And they provide the details as well. So the breadcrumb navigation, I think that's nothing I need to explain. So you can go back with one click if you want to.
It's perhaps also interesting to say that we have users, let's say CICOs, who are just using the reporting. They have an SAP user, sure, they have to have that to address the data or to access the data, but that's the only transaction they are looking for. Just the reporting, nothing else. No sub-GUI transaction, just this.
Yeah, this is all about, the main information about the status charts. Sebastian likes to show the trend charts for CodeProfiler.
Okay. If you want to see the trends for CodeProfiler, you need to take a look here. No, just joking, because but I'm showing it because all of these things which we currently use in a browser, they run perfectly on any kind of mobile device. So like, if you want to, you can come after my talk and just click on my iPhone or an iPad. Works pretty cool.
And it looks best on tablets.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's switch to CodeProfiler for the trend reporting, and I'm opening the trends in here. So you see currently we have for CodeProfiler 3 trends. Let me quickly explain what we do have here. In the top left area you see a code size trend. So while we are scanning, we're measuring the amount of code which we're scanning, and the top green line shows the amount of code, and the below line shows the amount of comments. And then in the right area we are having something which we call the work list. That's basically all findings which have status open, so things you need to still check on. And yeah, a typical KPI which my sales colleagues are always calculating is how many findings per 1,000 lines of code do you have. And that's also something which we are doing in this CodeProfiler trend reporting in here. So you see, it's this chart where we say the so-called finding frequency is how many findings you have per 1,000 lines of code. And if you want to ask a question, are things really getting better? Is your code quality getting better? Then this would be like the first KPI you start with. So is the amount of findings per a certain amount of code, is that going down the ratio? Then you're doing better. And yeah, concerning using the dashboard for the trends, let's just again go here into the details. So you see the trend for the finding frequency now. You see that we are talking about certain dates which we see in here. So the latest data in here would be from today, and then going back in day-wise steps currently. Now these intervals, they are also completely configurable. So you could say, well, checking and showing the trend on a daily basis makes no sense. Perhaps you would like to see it going weekly back or going bi-weekly back, and so that's you can configure it as you want to. You can also say, well, for the first step, go 1 week back, and then go 2 weeks back, and then you switch over to monthly steps. And so in order to cover an even longer period. You see, if you move the mouse over the dates, you see the concrete values as well. Of course, they are displayed in the tabular view. Concerning the navigation, when we talk about the trends display, on the one hand, we can from here navigate into the status of a certain, we call it a certain reporting point, so a certain date which you see in here. So if you really want to drill down into the status or snapshot of that date, just pick it from here, and then you're navigated into the into the status reporting again. So there was a link Joachim mentioned on one of the slides where he said, well, we have a horizontal link between trends and status reporting. So now I switched away from the changing in time to a distribution on a certain date. So that would be the finding frequency on 26th of May. Okay, so I can pick any date I want to. And then also from here I can drill down into more details. Now the drilling down options, they are depending on the product you choose. The navigation passes which we have in CodeProfiler, they differ from SystemProfiler, because in CodeProfiler, for example, we don't know a thing like a region or a system type. For us, it's just source code that we scan. So, but what we could differentiate inside in here is, for example, you can also attach multiple systems, or you can show the trend per different scenarios. So that CodeProfiler term scenario, which you might know, is one navigational element which we have inside here. And then we can, for example, so the first checkbox which we have here is all scenarios. So that's the complete set of data. And we could also like compare, well, I scanned 2 CodeProfiler scenarios. So I have team for sales and distribution, and their code I scan with one scenario, and then I have team for finance development, and their code is scanned with another scenario. So I can set things up to compare the distribution between these things. And okay, in here you see that obviously in the first scenario I was doing pretty well already from the beginning. Perhaps there's also not really much code inside. I would need to switch into the other view to check that. But within the scenario 3, it shows that well, there were two points in time from the 27th to the 28th where things were improved, and then again from the 29th to the 30th where things were improved. So perhaps something was transported where we did our corrections and it was then rescanned, and afterwards things really were better. Okay, so far on the trend reporting. Okay, so I think you got a good impression of how the dashboard is used, what kind of charts and graphs we have inside. Now I would like to give you a brief overview on the data which the dashboard displays for both tools. Where do we currently stand with that? So first for my product, CodeProfiler for ABAP, we're having, when it comes to the status display, so displaying a certain point in time and giving you an overview of the current scan results, we're having 5 status views. First one is called the work list. I already had this. That's all open findings you need still to work on. Then we're having a distribution of the findings by their status. So, you know, within CodeProfiler, you do status management and you set certain findings to no issue, and others you set to they should be fixed, and so on. So you can see, well, how many findings really were moved aside and how many are really in progress. Then we have an overview on the test cases by domain, which means like you see I have 100 security findings, and then I have 50 compliance findings, and then 1,000 in maintainability. So you get an idea in which areas you're doing good and which other areas you're not doing good. Then we're having the code size. I mean, it's obvious we're measuring the amount of code and we're measuring the amount of comments. And finally, the finding frequency, where we put the amount of findings and the size of the code into relation. That's how many findings per 1,000 lines of code do you have. And concerning trend reporting, we're showing trends for the work list. So things you still need to do, the open findings, how they change, and how the code size changes, and of course how the finding frequency changes. That's like coming back out to our first question. That's the answer to are things getting better? Okay, and for SystemProfiler, we are also having 5 status views. The test cases per finding type, you've seen that in Joachim's demo in the beginning, where you see a distribution of the returned findings by the finding type, which varies from very high to high and so on. Then no, not true. That what business impact is from very high to high, medium and low.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a second one. Finding type is
Potential information flow.
Right. Like, yeah. It's a how sure is the tool in terms of what that it's reporting is really true. Then of course we also have the test case domains. Give me an example for
Security,
you.
compliance, maintainability, performance.
Right.
So on.
And test categories is just a next drill down to
Yes.
that, which
Yeah.
we don't have in CodeProfiler. So you split up, for example, all these security things into more categories. So we don't have that in CodeProfiler. And system coverage is also something which I mentioned in my introduction. You want to know how many systems were scanned and how many systems were not scanned due to whatever reason. And you can see this in this status. And concerning the trends, we are showing trends for the first two things, for the business impact and the finding type development.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're interested into any of these in more detail, as we said, just come over to our booth down there and we show the dashboard live. Okay, now we need to continue with the architectural insight.
So let's have a look behind the curtain. So what happens when you install, or what needs to be done when you install the reporting solution of VirtualForge? What are the installation prerequisites and how does the setup look like? As mentioned in the beginning, we are shipping the dashboard with the installation for an ABAP backend system. There's no installation in the front end required, so it immediately runs with all state-of-the-art browsers without installation of any plugin in the browser or something else. So it's simply installation in the backend, which is an ABAP NetWeaver 7.0 or higher. It's installed via the transaction chain. Some of you might know this. This is the usual installation process in NetWeaver systems. And it requires just a minimum of configuration. I can show you this later. And afterwards, you can directly connect to your central systems of SystemProfiler or CodeProfiler for ABAP. Yeah. So how does the setup look like in your landscape? SystemProfiler scans your SAP landscape. So from the central system, the connected target systems are covered with so-called inspections. And CodeProfiler runs on each of your SAP systems or your relevant SAP systems. And the results of the CodeProfiler scans are aggregated into a central system for CodeProfiler. And if you run the dashboard in the reporting system, which might be a third system in the game, it's automatically accessing the central systems of CodeProfiler or SystemProfiler or even both. And last but not least, I need to mention that the installation can be done on one instance. So all three types of instances can be installed in one NetWeaver system if necessary or if possible. So last but not least, let's have a look to the configuration part. As I already mentioned in the session before, we always have an implementation guide. We ship an implementation guide with our products. So within the ABAP system, you can configure the dashboard as well. And as you can see, there are only three activities necessary. The first is the activation of some services. That's one-time activity. You need to activate it simply because we connect from the browser to the backend via web services, and these services need to be activated. Then we need to assign the RFC destinations to connect to the products, to the central systems. That's one necessary step. And then finally, you are able to set up a few parameters for each of these solutions, CodeProfiler or SystemProfiler, which, for example, contain the reporting dates Sebastian mentioned before, so you can dynamically calculate the reporting points in your trend charts using these parameters. And of course, we didn't mention it yet, you can define a scope. What does a scope mean? Scope means which data is displayed for CodeProfiler or SystemProfiler within the dashboard. And this can even be changed in the settings of a running dashboard. So it's not only configured. This is configured for the initial start of the dashboard, but you can change it in the runtime. Yeah, questions so far regarding the setup, configuration, installation? So it's coming with SAP NetWeaver transports, more or less. That's all. Yes, and last but not least, the Outlook. We are currently installing the dashboard with a number of customers, and we discussing the functionality. And beside of all the functionality issues that we still might have, or the improvements that the customers propose, we still have our ideas how to further develop the dashboard, yeah, let's say in a big direction. And there are two things we have in mind regarding this vision. There's one cross-product dashboard. That's the idea, more or less. So the CodeProfiler for ABAP, the SystemProfiler is already connected to this dashboard. The transport profiler will follow, but there might be a need, we can even ask you if you see this need to connect all this information regarding transport profiler, system profiler, code profiler within one dashboard, and that might be the direction for the development of the dashboard. Don't worry about the layout. This is just a content draft. It's a draft, a simple draft, nothing else. The layout might be completely different, but it displays how it could work. So we have different sections in the dashboard displaying all the information that you might be interested in. So what is the status of my code in the system landscape, and what is the status of the system configuration, for example. And this can be displayed in one view. Yeah. So this SAP system status means the configuration. This is system profiler content and maybe even transport profiler content. And the code status is, of course, provided by CodeProfiler. So the question to you now. After you got an impression of our current development, what are your ideas? What are your requirements regarding the reporting that you, especially if you already use one of our solutions, but not the dashboard? Would you install it and use it?
That's a good question. I'm here to tell you. It's not much, and it's only being, let's say, paid once, and you can use that then with all products. I can give you a figure afterwards, but it's really, I wouldn't say cheap, but it's with minimal costs. I think the interesting piece also for reporting is a situation we are facing more and more, that someone pays for our products. This is typically the C-level, someone who has the budget and who has, let's say, the rank in an enterprise, and then the products are getting shipped. And what we are experiencing, especially outside, let's say, of Germany, is that the one who is paying for the product has no control how the developers and the admin people are using the product. So very often a CIO is asking us, do they run our products what I like they have to run? And this is then also an answer. This is also an answer in which we can typically say, yes, CodeProfiler is being run in, let's say, in the test environment with 200 out of 300 test cases. And then someone asks, hey, what are the 100 test cases which are deactivated? And this is a discussion we have quite often in our customer base. And this is then also, let's say, a kind of a weapon the C-level or the management level gets to really be sure what kind of figures they get from our products. Is it just a fake? Is it just a minimum amount of, let's say, of test cases, of systems covered and all of that stuff? And this is, let's say, also, let's say, a tool to answer that question. I think this is one of the main questions we have not just with our products, it's the same with ETD. So what does it help to have an ETD in place if you don't know what kind of data are flowing into the ETD solution? And this is, let's say, this helps you to get an answer. So as we saw, there is no requirement. So every customer can run it.
Of course, you need to activate the necessary services to run a BSP. Yeah, that's true.
It's not Fiori technology.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, Sebastian and Joachim, thank you very much. Thank you for your attention this morning, and we have now a break for lunch, and enjoy that. Thank you.